Hello, fellow travelers, and welcome to the Traversing the Stars podcast. Today's guest is Sarah T. Schwab. You know her from movies such as My Name Is and Life After You. She's now the director and writer of a new movie called A Stage of Twilight. Now join me as we go Traversing the Stars. Oh, hello, Miss Schwab, to the Traversing the Stars podcast. Pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really, really happy to be here.
It's definitely my pleasure. I'm really looking forward to your latest movie, A Stage of Twilight.
Thank you.
It sounds fantastic.
It has been many years in the making, and it just feels like a blessing that we got it done. So, and that it is in excellent form right now.
So I didn't know that. So how many years is it from beginning conception to being made?
So it actually started as a stage play that I wrote 7 years ago, and it has been at Cherry Lane Theater in New York City. It's been up in Vermont at Dorset Theater. We had something at Berkshire Theater Group in Massachusetts. And Karen Allen, who I met through Rattlestick Playwrights Theater, has been attached that whole entire time. So she has been so instrumental in helping me with the characters and the story, and to actually finally bring it to fruition in a film format is just really cool.
And I read that, you're a journalist, you're a fiction writer, you're a director, obviously a playwright as well, which I did not know that part, but wow, playwright as well. Which one of those loves came first?
I've always just really wanted to tell story and write in any capacity that I could. I knew that from a very young age. So it started with journalism. I was an English major in college, but I was also the editor-in-chief of the campus newspaper for a few years. And so journalism really came first. And I had my own column in an upstate New York newspaper for about 8 years. That slowly morphed into prose writing. When I moved to New York City, that morphed into playwriting. And then I met all of the beautiful artists and actors while I was in New York City. And eventually that led me to film writing in 2016.
So how easy is it to go from, like I said, script writing to journalism and also movie writing for scripts? Is that an easy transition to go from one type of writing to another? Is it just kind of natural? If you're good at writing, you can just do it?
I would say, my creed, my personal creed is that story comes first always. And so whatever medium that takes, whether that is telling another person's story via journalism, or it's totally fictitious and it's long form for prose, or it's very dialogue heavy for playwriting, or it's more visual for the screen. I think that story has always been my core as a human being. And so whatever form that takes, even now, I could go back to journalism in no time. And I really want to tell human stories.
Well, you have, like, as you said, a degree in bachelor's degree in English literature and journalism. You have a master's degree in English literature from the State University of New York at Fredonia. Mm-hmm. What fascinates you about English literature, and how does English literature and studying that also make you a better storyteller as well?
Oh, well, I wanted to read good work, good literature, good story. And, SUNY Fredonia is just a fantastic college. I can't promote it enough. But I had educators there that were sharing with me all of the best literature that I had never even known about. And so I just had a wealth of knowledge. And to study English literature and critical theory was another one of my focuses, and to understand how character works and story structure works, and what is a deeper meaning within story without telling people, but showing people. I think that is really why I gravitated toward English literature. I wanted everything that I could possibly have given to me, and then, dissect it at will.
I'm actually an English teacher as well for high school, not as a college professor. So I'm also a lover of English literature. So is there one particular work that just grabbed you, and this was the work that you thought to yourself, I could read this all day long and study it?
Oh God, that's always such a hard question. People ask me this with films all the time too. If I was really pushed to find one book that I could read if I was deserted on an island somewhere. It would be East of Eden by John Steinbeck.
Oh, okay.
I love all of his work, and Patricia Highsmith is another, book author that I love. But East of Eden, at least every 2 years, I will go back and read it again. So I don't know what draws me to it, but that's the one.
So do you find a connection between what you read and what you actually write as far as style or topic?
I would say that right now I tend to write more drama, but those dramatic elements are always laced with some sort of psychological thriller-ish thing, even though it might not be defined as a thriller. I really like focusing on deep human topics, but that keep people in suspense in some way. It doesn't matter what the topic is, but so I think the psychological thriller / drama space is what I gravitate toward naturally.
Well, I read that you actually worked with Diane Johnson during the 2013, am I going to say it right, Sewanee Writers Conference? Am I in the ballpark?
Yes, correct.
I got it right.
Correct.
Well, points for me.
Yeah.
Good for me. And is this the same Diane Johnson that actually wrote the screenplay for the Kubrick The Shining?
She is.
Holy
she
crap.
is.
That's a hell of a teacher.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. This is really before I even got fully immersed into film writing and screenwriting. So it kind of felt kismet looking back on that. I mean, The Shining is one of my favorite movies, and I actually just watched it last night again.
Oh.
But she did. She wrote the screenplay, and she was a fantastic teacher. She was coaching me on prose writing at the time on a short story that I had been working on, also in the drama thriller space. But man, she was a fantastic teacher. She was just so real and so honest. And I can't believe it was 2013 that happened, but it was a real honor to just speak with her and be in her presence one-on-one.
I can just imagine. I mean, like I said, everyone knows The Shining is one of the legendary movies in cinema history. I mean, everyone knows The Shining. So, I mean, was it intimidating learning from someone who you know, and you obviously probably knew the movie as well?
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, very much. It's been my favorite movie for a very long time. Yeah. Intimidating. Yes, of course. I was earlier in my writing career at that point. Being at Sewanee Writing Conference was a huge honor. So there was a tidbit of confidence that came with that I was like, oh, I got in. And Diane Johnson's my mentor for this project. But what I really came to the table doing was just listening. I was like, she really knows how to make a story burn slowly. And I'm like, how do I listen to her and how do I do that? And so I came in less scared and more intrigued and curious. And I've tried to maintain that sort of emotion moving forward with any of the mentors that I've had since then.
That's a wonderful brag to have, that you learned writing from Diane Johnson. I mean, that's something that's like line one on the initial resume. Diane Johnson taught me to write.
Yeah, she was one of the many people. When I got into the New York City theater off-Broadway world, there are so many people who I learned to write from in that world too, and just filmmaking as well. And we, funnily, Karen Allen, who I just worked on a movie with, collaborated on a movie with, she is another inspiration of somebody who helped me learn how to write, specifically for playwriting and then later on with screenwriting. And it really comes down to character and structure and understanding what medium you're writing for and understanding how all those things work together. Again, it comes down to story.
I think what I really liked about you, and it may just be the teacher in me that once really loved what you said about a minute ago when you're talking about, I just listened. And maybe it's just me as a teacher thinking to myself, I would love my students to think they just listened. But I think that's a wonderful thing. The idea of, like you said, you're just listening, taking it all in. And the important part is just listening to what the mentor, this experienced individual, has to impart to you. And I think that's a fantastic skill that very few people, I think, do possess.
I think more people need to absorb and understand their own filter and not judge what other people are telling them, but be confident in their own filter and their own voice and understand what the theme, what it is that they want to say with whatever particular piece that they're working on, and take it all in and let go of the stuff that doesn't work for you, but hold on to those precious pieces that stick.
Yeah.
That's what makes you a better writer.
How hard is it to just like, and I do writing a little bit as well. I mean, obviously not at your level, but I do writing as well. And the hardest thing for me is when someone gives me an edit that significantly alters part of my story. It's very hard to just to let it go. You know, you kind of want to like tweak it or change it, but it's hard to just be like, cut it loose. It's obviously not working. How hard is it for you to say, this piece doesn't work, I need to just let it go?
Well, they say kill your babies, right? I've done that in a bunch of different pieces that I've written. But when you really let go of your hubris and your ego, and you focus on the characters and their motivations and what story you're trying to tell, and what kind of catharsis you're trying to give to the audience. Once you focus on that and beeline toward that, it becomes apparent what is right and what's not right. I don't really know how to specifically say that, but when you're nose to nose with a story, it's easy to lose sight. So when someone comes in with a bird's eye view about something, there are gems in that. And so you have to be willing to open yourself up to not always being right. And that's okay, because it is a connection. That's what writing is. It is connecting with others. So you have to open yourself to other people's opinions, and then trying to be a conduit to tell the best story possible.
And it must be working for you, because you've won so many accolades. And I typed them out. So I wrote a few. I'm going to read them. So a moment of embarrassment maybe for you, but either way, it'd be a lot of your accolades. So you've won the Best WNY Short Award at the Buffalo International Film Festival. You won Best Lead Actress in a Short Film at the Nice International Film Festival for My Name Is. You also won the Best Feature Film Award at the Nice International Film Festival for Life After You. And then there's just a bunch of others that I didn't want to type them all out, but you got a bunch of them. How did winning these awards enhance you, not only your career trajectory, but how you think about your writing going forward, and what chances you can take now that you've had these awards and these accolades, and obviously assurances of your ability?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It always feels good when somebody recognizes your work, right? And it can help with, getting future work funded as well, especially when you're on an independent level, which I am. But I really have to say that as much as I appreciate those accolades and hope to get more in the future, one of the best moments that I ever got in terms of recognition with this, I co-wrote a film called Life After You in 2020, right before the pandemic, which was very lucky. But it's based off of a story. It's based off of a book called Life After You, What Your Drugs Leaves Behind. And it was written by a grieving mother who lost her son to a heroin overdose that was laced with fentanyl. And it was a warning to people. And so the movie that I co-wrote, Life After You, is about that family's experience after the fact that they lost their son. And so it's about grieving, it's about blame, it's about so many things. It's about survival and hope in the midst of hopelessness. And I was terrified I had worked with the parents, my co-writer Florencio Lozano and the star of the movie. We had worked with the parents, Linda and Tito Latterman, very closely while we were writing it. So they opened up their lives, the worst day of their lives, to us. And sharing that film with them was terrifying. And when I got on the phone with Linda after the fact, the film was locked, it was done, we were going to film festivals, and not knowing what they would feel about us showing their lives and this horrible story. When Linda told me, you did our son justice, you did our story justice, I directed the film. Honestly, that that was the biggest thing that I took away. I was like, this is why I do what I do, because I'm telling a story, a human story that's getting a message out and hopefully helping people, hopefully. But that's bigger than any accolade that I could ever get in anywhere. So,
and I imagine what was terrifying was you were concerned of disappointing the writer or the mother or those who would have potentially seen the film and maybe learn something or figure something out about, obviously you said fentanyl and everything else, and that may have been worthy, of that audience. So is it, which part of it was the most terrifying for you?
I was scared that they had trusted me with this huge, this terrible incident, and they trusted me as the director and the co-writer to tell their story, and that I didn't get it right, and that I didn't, and for her to say, you did get it right, that was everything. That was really everything, and my sole focus during that process.
Well, I mean, you've actually proven yourself to be fantastic as a writer and also a director. You're currently in post-production to a movie that I think sounds absolutely fascinating and has grabbed my attention quite a bit over the last few weeks, called A Stage of Twilight. What inspired the creation of this film?
So like I mentioned, A Stage of Twilight was based on a stage play that I wrote 7 years ago. I guess it's a very personal story for me. The basic plot line is about a couple who has been married for over 40 years. They have no children, and the husband gets a terminal diagnosis, and he starts manifesting these, symptoms, really unpleasant symptoms, right at the beginning of the movie. And his wife notices, she's very upset, she's worried, and he decides that he does not want her to see what's happening to him. He wants to be remembered for who he was at the beginning of their relationship rather than who he is at the end of his life. So he tells her that he is going to rent a trailer in the middle of the woods, and he's basically going to go off, and that's that remember me who I was, not who I am right now. So that basic story, it's not real life or anything or documentary, but that's based off of my father passing away. He got sick when I was 15 years old. And he battled that illness until I was 21 when he passed away. And he was a very blue collar man. And he was the pillar of our family and the pillar of our community. And to see this illness whittle away at his body and his pride and all the things that made him who he was, it was terrible for him and embarrassing, and just, it was bad. So the husband character is strongly inspired by what my dad went through. And if he had his choice, would he have wanted us to see him that way? I don't know. But yeah.
When you're thinking about, when you're seeing ideas of, like I said, the difficulty of eventually, realizing you're dying of this disease and everything else, do you think it's more difficult for the person going through it on some level, or is it or the difficulty is those around them, or knowing that those around you are watching this happen to you? You know what I'm saying? Like, which is you find is the, I mean, I assume obviously dying is obviously, I mean, it's hard. I mean, can't belittle that. But
of course,
as far as, let's say, instead of not the physical aspects, but emotionally, is it worse for the individuals watching this happen, or for the individual watching people watch you slowly waste away? Especially when I imagine you're used to visibly being the stronger, the male of your family, how we all know the male ego in that sense as well.
Yeah, I think that's really the big question that I ask, is who gets to decide how and when and where you die? And is it the person who's going through it, or is it your loved ones? Do you have an obligation to to go in a way that will make them feel peaceful, or do you obtain a right to go in a way that makes you feel peaceful? And I don't think that there's a right answer, certainly one that I can answer. But that's the conversation that I hope people take away with the film, is that they understand, some people might understand where Barry, the husband, is coming from, who's played by William Sadler. You know, other people are going to understand where the wife, Cora, who's played by Karen Allen, where she's coming from, where she's like, no, you're not going into the woods. You're going to stay at home with me where we've always been. What are you thinking? So it's never answered what the right solution is. And I, you know, that was the goal the whole time, is just to have a conversation.
You know, I think that's usually the best type of movies and the best way to present an idea, to present the sides and the idea, and just, and as you said, have the conversation, which I always think is better than preaching on one side or the other, which I think is often the most off-putting way of presenting something. So I think the conversation is the most necessary way, and allowing people to vicariously participate in that conversation through those characters, I think, is also the best way for them to start thinking about the same question.
Yeah, exactly. And they'll, you know, everybody's going to bring their own life experience to the table when they're watching. So you don't want to spoon feed them anything. You want them to implant their own opinions and things that have happened to them in their lives. And then come to the table, and, you know, it's all about connection and understanding people who might think differently than you, right? That's the whole point of storytelling, I think. So yes, you're correct. Yeah.
I mean, obviously, you've existed in this story for a while. As you said, it's a long history going back from the stage to now you're currently, like I said, in post-production. How hard is it mentally to live in this world, in this situation for that long?
You know, in a weird way, you know, I'm a very, very happy person. I'm not going to, you know, just to put that out there. As a prerequisite. But because I went through my father's passing and through all those years, and I'm an only child, and my mom, and experiencing what she went through with everything, I'm not afraid to steep into grief and to really talk about grief and what that looks like. Even with Life After You, similar thing. Stage of Twilight is different because we're dealing with living humans and bodies who are about to be presented with death and the loss. But for me, there is a catharsis personally that comes with talking about it honestly and respectfully and lovingly, and knowing that there is a wider audience that will appreciate that. So it doesn't personally drag me through the mud into dark places as I'm telling the story. I mean, we shot for 24 days, A Stage of Twilight in New Milford, Connecticut. And just working with such a beautiful group of people, who, cast and crew, who were all part of this project and felt very connected to it, kept me buoyed in a way that, you know, that what we were shooting that day might be really, you know, sad, and, you know, rightfully so. But I was so surrounded by life the whole time. And that's really what it's about, even when you're telling a story about death.
And I mean, you are the writer of this movie, you're the director, you're the producer. That's a lot of responsibility for any one person to take them. They're doing 3 jobs at once. How do you balance all those responsibilities on a film like this? And did you ever feel conflicted with the different hats? In other words, the producer going, well, you know, the producer going, you know, that director, as a director, that was a great idea, but I'm not paying, that's a little too expensive. We're not doing that as an idea. Or the writer going, we definitely need, this would be perfect line of dialogue. You think as a director, yeah, but doesn't shoot very well. I mean, is there any ever conflicts in that sense for yourself?
I think the beautiful thing about wearing all those hats is you know that you're going to be wearing them right from the beginning. So as I was working on taking the stage play and adapting it into a screenplay, I already was wearing the producer hat and I was already wearing the director hat. So all that stuff that you just talked about came right into the writing process. You know, I was thinking constantly, like, how much is it going to cost? How many locations do we have? How many extras do we have? Blah, 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 blah. And as I'm also writing, I'm also thinking about, well, what does this shot look like? How would this emotion come out? And like, what would the camera angle be at that moment? And so it actually, they work together when you know that you're doing all those things rather than working against each other. So,
and
yeah.
There's two, I mean, to the, so these great stars you have in this movie, William Sadler, who's a friend of the show and a wonderful human being, and Karen Allen, who soon will hopefully be a friend of the show in the future. What do these great actors bring to respective roles?
Oh my gosh. It is like, it's still surreal to me. We shot in mid-June of 2021 during a pandemic to mid-July 2021. And like I mentioned, Karen had been part of the story for several years now. And so she has been instrumental in bringing to life her character, specifically of Cora, and just helping me find the through line of the story and all the ways it's changed. Bill Sadler came on board later in the process, but he had such a wealth of knowledge. We had been working with another fantastic actor named Jeff DeMunn while we were doing it as stage play. So Bill came on later in the process, but he had such a beautiful energy to him, and Karen and him got along fantastically. And it was kismet in a way that they just brought the words to life. And if the words didn't feel right, we had a conversation about it. And it was between the three of us, and our other actor who played a young boy who plays a surrogate son to the couple, whose name is Marlon Kihihe. All of us were just constantly communicating. It's like, well, I feel like Barry would do this, and I feel like he would do this. I feel there needs to be more comedy, or not comedy, but more humanity and liveliness here. And it's getting a little dark. And Karen would have her thoughts about her, certain moments with her character. And so because both actors have been in the industry for a very long time, and they have worked with some of the most fantastic directors in cinema history, it was, I was learning from them as much as they were also learning from me, because it's such a personal story to me. It was really a really special shoot. I can't say anything more than that. It was fantastic.
I mean, when you have two actors like William Sadler, who's been in the business for decades, and then you have Karen Allen, once again, been in the business for decades. As a director, do you kind of just let them do their thing a little bit more? Do you find that you handle them different than you would? The character, the guy who plays Joey, is actually this is his first film role, in comparison to having William Sadler and Karen Allen. Do you, as a director, approach each them differently, like the experienced vet versus maybe the more novice film star?
I believe Marlon's been in another film other than this one. I think, though, this was, like me, his first time working with bigger talent. And to answer your question, I wouldn't treat Bill or Karen differently than I do any other actor that I work with. I think it is always a constant collaboration. I always listen to what their instincts are, and I feel deeply about the direction that I want to go, whether that's an emotional continuity between the scenes. I'm constantly editing the film. I was constantly editing the film as we were shooting it in my head. So I knew what each scene needed to do. And they came to the table with their own instincts. So again, no, I didn't come to the table treating them differently than anybody else that I would have worked with, because I think that each person is coming from it with a well of knowledge. And again, it comes back to that filter. You have to understand where the gems are and what might not resonate with you personally. And as the director, that's everything's subjective, but it's your prerogative to really wade through all of the opinions and to help people feel that they trust you and your direction. So if you don't agree with them, possibly, you try to articulate where you're going and why, and hopefully they'll be along for the ride. So that's really how I worked with Karen and Bill and Marlon, and I think they trusted the process.
Now you said you mentioned the level of chemistry that there was on the set, especially between Karen Allen's character and William Sadler. How is it much better to make your life as a director when you can just see the organic chemistry between these characters and that things are clicking? And is that a process connected more to the quality of the script and the character and the richness of the characters? Or is there a sense of just a natural chemistry that just exists and it's hard to really explain how that exists?
You know, again, I'm just going to say story always comes first. Words on page always come first. And you got to get the words right. You got to get the arc right. And the actors will feel connected to that, and they'll bring their own level of spice to that story. So yeah, there are moments that a character or that an actor is going to say, you know, I feel like you'd be doing this, or I feel like he would be saying this, or she would be saying this instead of this. And I'm like, well, yeah, okay, if that's true to you, then go for it. As long as that, you know, the beats are there and the overall arc is there, then yeah, do what feels real for your character, because that's just going to make it sing.
I mean, as a director, it must be a great feeling when an actor does have those ideas, because it means they're fully invested in their characters. I would imagine Absolutely. An actor who would just read whatever's there and is not really thinking in that level about the why of their character saying that, it would be evidence of someone who's not that invested. So I would imagine that is a sign. That's a positive sign when they start questioning.
Well, motivation is key for any actor and any writer, and each actor came to the table with their own motivation, which we all discussed prior. And we actually did a table read between Karen, Bill, and Marlon and myself prior to the shoot. And I just asked them, like, you know, how did you all meet? What is your backstory? That's not on the page. That's not in the movie, but like, what is your backstory? How do you feel connected to one another? And they came up with their own backstory that felt true to all of them. So we automatically came to the screen and to shooting with that established. And I think that that's an essential building block for that connection between the actors.
So what did Marlon, I'm going to get the last name wrong, probably pronounced.
No, it's okay. It's Kihihei.
Kihihei.
Yeah.
Marlon Kihihei. Okay. What did Marlon Kihihei bring to his role as Joey and to the film?
Oh, Marlon, he talking about gems, man. This, like I said, he's done other film projects before, but I think this was his first bigger film. And he was so natural and so professional and so nice and lovely and collaborative. And his character, who plays a 19-year-old neighbor boy, who acts as a surrogate son to this childless couple, and I don't want to give a spoiler away, but he plays a big role at the end in helping be the hope in this hopeless situation between this husband and wife, where the husband's going to die, he's going to go away, and the wife can't do anything about it. And Marlon comes at it with his own perspective, because he's 19, he's just starting his life, he's figuring out what he wants to do moving forward, while this other couple is thinking about their past. And so this crossroads between this little family is interesting. And Marlon was just so authentic in every way, and he was such a pleasure to work with. I mean, he's going places, and I'm so excited for him. I can see him like through, I can just see it. So yeah,
well,
it was great.
Like I said, I mean, Stage of Twilight sounds like such a fascinating film, and I think I like the ideas that it's going to deal with, which I think are also important. And once again, the actors involved, Karen Allen and William Sadler, and I'm sure Marlon's fantastic, are all people who I think are phenomenal in their own way. Like I said, William is a friend of the show, and like I said, I'm rooting for him as well. So where can our listeners find A Stage of Twilight, and how soon is it going to be made available to them?
So I am, like you said, I'm in post-production right now. We still have to lock music and color correction and final mix. We're looking to enter the film festival circuit in early December. We're going to do that for about a year, and then we're looking for a theatrical release sometime in 2023. So we're still at the beginning of it, and once we start getting into festivals, I'm going to be posting all over social media about that. We have my independent film production company, Cardinal Flicks. There will be lots of information about that on there. And also we have a website, which is called A Stage of Twilight, thefilm.com. So I will be putting a lot of information on there as well. So people can either watch in the festival circuit or wait a year.
Well, from the sound of it, it sounds like you're going to be paying attention to award season as well when time comes around. Because like I said, it really just sounds like this is a film of true quality, and I think it has the right sensibilities about it. It sounds like it has the right writer and director for the film. That's you seem extremely insightful to these characters, and obviously the actors themselves seem like they were the perfect choice, and they have a love for the movie as well. So I'm sure award season is something that you should be paying attention to when that's time.
Yeah, well, we'll hope. Well, it's always there are so many good films out there in the world. So knocking on wood every day.
So what can our listeners look forward to next from you?
So we are in the planning pre-production stages of 2 feature films. One that I co-wrote, which is a psychological thriller called Cry Baby Bridge. We are looking to shoot that next October in Pennsylvania. It's inspired by folklore about crybaby bridges all across America. If you don't know what that is, Google it, or whatever your web service is. The other one is a film that I wrote and will direct as well, called Before the Ashes Fall. It is inspired by a book that I adapted into a screenplay by a wonderful writer named David Serafine. It deals with Alzheimer's disease, and it's more of a weaving plot line between 3 characters and how their seemingly separate lives come together at the end. Really, really great film. It's a drama, but I'm hoping to incorporate elements of thriller in there as well, because Alzheimer's and any kind of dementia or memory diseases it's a horrific thing, and I really want it to not feel necessarily this is no disrespect, I don't want it to feel necessarily like a Hallmark movie. I want it to feel more like a terrible thing that it is. So we're looking to shoot that next January. So we're gonna be busy next year coming up.
Well, I hope as these movies are ready to be spoken about, you come back on the show and discuss them. You're a great pleasure to talk to. And I want our listeners to keep their eyes out for Sarah T. Schwab and her movie A Stage of Twilight, which, like I said, as it starts coming out, be sure we'll be posting about it, and we'll keep the listeners, informed completely.
Well, thank you so much for having me. And, it's just been a pleasure talking with you. Thank you for taking an interest in all the work that we're doing.
It's definitely my pleasure. I hope you have a fantastic night.